So hi guys, I'm Dieter Mason. I work for Intuit, and today we have a pretty packed agenda. I intend to do like a little break, maybe a question or two after each one of those items, just to keep the content consistent. And then of course we have the large amount of time at the end if there's further questions. So let's get started. So a little bit about me, there's some contact information in there. What's really important is that I started doing cloud cost optimization in 2013 at Google. I went then to Netflix, where I learned Amazon Web Services, and at Intuit, where I continued doing Amazon Web Services, and also dabble a little bit in GCP, Google Compute Platform, and Microsoft Azure. If you guys have any questions or just want to talk, please go into the FinOps chat on Slack and just contact me there. Some of you already have done that, and I'm really grateful for that. Okay, so this is just on a really high level to give you an idea where Intuit is. We process over 4 billion rows every day of the cost and utilization report. We have over 100 million in prepaid services. So those are the reserved instances, all on Amazon Web Services. And when it comes to cost avoidance, we avoid about over $100,000 every day. So, my salary is already made up by that. This is really high level. Does anyone have questions?
How do you define your cost avoidance per day? Is that based on RIs? I mean, how do you define what that is?
There's multiple things. When we come to the KPIs, I have like a little section on that, but it's volume discounts, it's reserved instances, and then there are things like, for example, Elastic Block Store lifecycle management. So I will bring this up again when we are looking at KPIs.
Oh, thank you.
Cool. Let's go to the next one. To give you guys an overview of how cloud cost optimization is structured at Intuit, we get the Amazon bill centrally, and then we allocate out the cost to the different business units. There are about 6 business units. Most importantly, I feel we have executive sponsorship. So we have our CTO, Mariana, and our CFO, Michelle. I talk to them once every quarter. The next talk is coming up at the end of this month. And we use a mission-based team. So I'm really the only person that is 100% dedicated. Everyone else is contributing partially, and they have other projects that they are working on. I'm located in finance, and that's just so that I can reach out in all the other teams. And I have access to cloud cost optimization and to data analytics. Depending on projects, I may be able to reach into other teams. Like currently, we have a machine learning project that's active where I'm working with data scientists. So when interacting with executives, I found it is really useful to have a mission statement and prioritization principles. They will ask for that, and it helps everyone to get grounded. So one of the first slides after the agenda, when I talk to our CTO and CFO at the end of this month, is going to be the 2 items that you see at the bottom of this slide, which is the mission statement and the prioritization principles. In addition, of course, we have also key performance indicators that we are tracking. We are tracking how the program performs and how Intuit overall performs. I will go into that in just a bit. We also do different different types of reviews on different cadences. So I said that with the CTO and CFO, I meet once a quarter. With the respective vice presidents from finance and cloud operations, I meet every month. And also with the 6 business units, I meet every month. And the last one is kind of like a stand-up where I share how the business unit is doing, any anomalies, any runaway spend that we noticed, but also technology updates, something that my team developed that is now available. And we also take feedback from the business units of what the pain points are, where do they need help. So yeah, that's just to give you guys like an intro. Any questions around any of these items? Okay, let's move on. So this here is something that we simply call the scorecard. The concept is basically that this is a dashboard that has those tiles, and each tile is an improvement opportunity. What is not shown in this dashboard is that there's an extensive filter to the side, and the filter allows you. I think what you see here at the moment is all of Intuit. And the filter then allows you to drill down into a specific business unit, into a specific vice president, director, go even down to a team level or to an individual contributor level. Each tile has a little question mark on top of it. So if you have questions on how to interpret the tile, what the colors mean, how that all works, it's easy to get access to what the tiles mean. At the bottom, you have a little bit of a graph that basically shows the 12-month progression. Here we have unattached EBS volumes. As you guys know, it's 10 cents per gig per month. And so those are all cost avoidance opportunities. At the bottom, also not shown on this graph, is simply a table. And this table has things like the account number, the instance ID or the volume ID. It will tell you exactly what your opportunity is, and it will also quantify the opportunity in dollars. And mostly the dollar figure is why I can't just show it here, where they just didn't allow me to share this information. But let's say you're a team lead, you can bring this down to your team's level, right? You can identify which of your team members has the largest opportunity. You just sort it by the dollar value and go after the top 10 or top 20. So yeah, that's I think one of the methods that we are using that is driving the cost optimization. And it sort of helps to gamify the experience, right? Groups can compete against each other, and you can quickly identify where the opportunities are. So I will give some time to ask questions.
Yeah, I've got one for you, Dieter.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Karen.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so this is Ryan from Ancestry. Question on some of these scorecards that you use. Are these things that you guys have internal, or maybe industry metrics, or is it specific to how you run the compute?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. All these scorecards that you see here, they have like a little dollar value. Those are actually provided by Trusted Advisor. So there's 6 cost optimization metrics that a Trusted Advisor has. And then we have additional ones, like for example, last talk, we learned about reserved instance management and the red-green principle, that you have a green area and a red area.
Yeah.
So we have the same principle. One of these tiles here without the dollar values is simply, do you have your workload in a region where we purchase RIs? If not, then you have an opportunity to move to a region or ask for an exemption. So any of these things can also be exempt, in which case we keep tracking you and we keep telling you there is more opportunity for you, but we won't count it against you. We won't color the card red.
So you give these to each service, or is this the rolled up scorecard, or do you have both?
So this is the rolled up scorecard, and it will be opportunities like, out of region, out of tenancy, out of low utilization, RDS, low utilization, EC2. You see that one actually is displayed. It's the red one at the top tile. And you can drill it down by team, by application, by environment. Sometimes that's necessary, like is it production environment, is it a test environment? Yeah, so you have different ways to slice and dice the data.
Thank you.
Karen?
Yes, and that's what I saw it in chat. What tool are you using? Is it a homegrown tool, or is it?
Unfortunately, it is a homegrown tool. Essentially, we just ingest the cost and utilization report. So Jason Rhodes has actually a reInvent talk on that, last 2018 reInvent. You can look it up on YouTube, and he will explain what he did there. And then based on that ingested cost and utilization report, we built those higher level metrics.
What was the name of that guy that did the reInvent presentation?
Jason Rhodes, last name Rhoades, Rhodes. I think Intuit only had like 2 or 3 presentations at reInvent that were recorded. So you should be able to find it also by looking for Intuit. Okay, cool. In the interest of time, let's move on. This scorecard was actually so successful that we decided to make a executive version of the scorecard, and that is what you guys see next. So in this scorecard, each row would basically be one business unit, and then the type of opportunity will be the columns. So the first 2 columns is the underutilized EC2. As you can see, the largest opportunity is there, while everything else over time, the teams were able to improve. You also see, what is it here? 7 months for some reason, a history of the one that is currently selected, which happens to be EC2 utilization. That's in that little graph to the bottom right. Also, this one is easy to use for executives. So which means you can click on stuff. You don't have to use the filter. So you basically click on a business unit, and it will drill down into the different functional groups within that business unit. You click on the functional group, it will go into the different applications that the functional group is running. So something like Mint, TurboTax, QuickBooks. You can simply identify where the most opportunity is and go after those. Again, questions?
So when you say for your executives, what person is that? Is it?
So it will be CTO, so Mariana, CFO, Michelle, and then EVPs, SVPs, those kind of people. They like to see this view, right, where they see how bad am I compared to my peers. Mm-hmm. So it's more of a competitive view than the scorecard. Any of these views, you can also bookmark the filter conditions. So for example, if you found something that is specific for your team, you just bookmark that thing, and then you go directly to the bookmark. So you can literally watch like day over day how you improve. All this is again updated when the CUR is ingested, which happens to be twice a day for Intuit. And so twice a day, all this data is refreshed for you.
You mentioned there's a EC2 remediation flowchart. Is that something that you'll be covering in the rest of your presentation?
I do have. It's actually below this, but I don't have a screenshot for it. Just I think it's public knowledge. It's pretty simple. Just Slack me on the FinOps Slack, and I will give you the screenshot of the flowchart. It's actually below this text here. So this dashboard is a little bit bigger than I'm showing here. Yeah, of course. So yeah, this is basically, Karen, how we try to motivate people. So we have budgets. Like you said, yes, you will need budgets, right? And I will go into forecasting in a bit. So we have the budgets, right? And the developers, or at least the directors and vice presidents, are being held accountable to deliver against budget. And so if there is a danger to this here is the helping tool that will basically put a flashlight on the opportunities. That's basically how we motivate people to do cost optimization. Okay.
Thank you.
Of course. Let's move on to the next one. I think we're going to switch topics a little bit. Yeah. Okay. So this is tag-based chargebacks. So from the very beginning, because we basically pay the entire AWS bill in one business unit, and then we charge out against the other business unit budget, we always had the flexibility to have chargebacks. And chargebacks existed from the very beginning for shared services. So for example, if you log into Intuit, that login itself is being handled by a service called identity. It is, co-branded in the colors of whatever application. If you're on QuickBooks, it will look a little bit different than in TurboTax, but underneath it's the same service, right? So it's a shared service. That team, by the way, has almost no budget. Their budget is extremely small, even though their operating expenses are in the millions of dollars. So all of their cost is being basically charged back into what business unit is using them. So we kind of have like a publisher and subscriber or try-catch principle here. The first part is that the developers need to put one of these 4 or 5 tags, depending how you're counting, onto the resource that needs to be charged back. So if the resource is taggable, for example, an EC2 instance or something like that, right? You put that those tags on, and it will tell the system, the chargeback system, where those charges should flow. However, that is just half of the story, because that would then allow people to randomly take operating expenses and give them to someone else without that person ever agreeing to it. And that is the second step here that you see. There's a little contract database. I think we have about 40 contracts. So the person or the business unit that wants the money to be charged to someone else, they will create this contract, and it's just a simple JSON object, really, that is persistently stored. And then the business unit that is agreeing to pay for those charges has to approve the contract. So you have the two things of the tags on the resource and the contract with the receiver of the charges agreeing to the receipt of the charges that make the automation. And the third picture, we actually see, this is one of our graphs where we see cloud spend. Again, this is cost and utilization driven, and you would be able to see different AWS services like EC2 or the S3, those kind of things, right? And there's now a new type of service called Intuit allocations. And that Intuit allocations is basically the chargeback. There's more detail under the allocations. So let's say if you get like, $500,000 in Intuit allocations, you can actually unpack that and deaggregate it and see, oh, okay, so security is charging this much, identity is charging this much, and so forth. Any questions around these items?
Are you using the same tool that you described before to do this allocation?
So the tool that I described before, let's actually go back.
Carry on.
Yeah, this is the scorecard, right? And the scorecard is to identify savings opportunities. So you will get from Trusted Advisor, for example, you had less than 10% of CPU utilization over X amount of days. I think it's 4 days, right? And so it will include your EC2 instance in this dashboard here, right? Those are savings opportunities or cost avoidance opportunities. The chargebacks is a different thing. You are basically operating a workload, but you're operating it for another business unit. So that business unit may not have the technical capability to operate, what you're doing. You're doing it for them, but your business unit does not have the budget to pay for that. So what you're doing is you're taking the charges from the AWS bill and pushing it back to the business unit that actually incurred the charges.
Okay, but the system that you're using to do these chargebacks is a homegrown system.
It is the same system.
Same system. Okay.
Yeah, it's a data warehouse that is based on the cost and utilization report that is running on Redshift. Correct.
Thank you.
So
Yeah,
I have
of
a question
course.
for
Any
you,
more
Peter.
questions?
Yeah,
go.
the contracts, how granular are they? Meaning, is it like a one-time thing, or is it every, you're giving this contract to this developer to assign your charges, or is it, per resource, or what's the level of contract?
So the contract is tied to a tag. So anything that carries the tag qualifies for that chargeback type. The contract can be time limited. I have seen some, there's 40 of them. I'm familiar with like, a dozen maybe. There are some time limited contracts where two business units have kind of like an agreement that is limited over like 12 or 18 months or something like that. What I have seen though is that there are some contracts where they say everything that's tagged or out of the following list of accounts, because as anyone here can tell, there are some resources like data transfer rates and things like that that cannot be necessarily tagged, and so you have to have a mechanism to move those resources to the business unit that is actually financially responsible for that.
Great, thank
So
you.
you use this model to do that for those services that aren't taggable.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's unfortunately a problem, right? Not everything is taggable, so you need a little bit of a workaround, and you basically say yes, everything that has the tag, step one, or things that resources that are untaggable that are coming from the following accounts. So it's a little bit of a workaround, and there's only like one or two services, one or two of those contracts that have that require it. Like for example, identity being one of them, because a lot of the network traffic it actually costs money, right?
How do you prevent business units from using tags that are not theirs?
Yeah, so that's the publisher and subscriber principle. So any engineer can put any tags on their resources. That's absolutely right? But the contract says that I accept anything that has these tags, that match these conditions, and I accept any charges from that. It is now still possible that, especially for shared services like identity, right? They could mistag. They could give a QuickBooks charge and mistag it into TurboTax and move it over. So mistakes are still possible, but at least this process used to be done by Excel spreadsheets manually once a month at the end of the month. And there may have been human error there too. At least now that element of manual human interaction is removed. Now, if you receive too much, you at least can actually go and use the same tool and drill down and figure out how many of those instances were assigned to you. And if you feel that's too much, you can have a conversation with the operator. So before it was just a black box.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. I guess let's move on. Again, I think I'm going to change topics again. Yeah, here, forecasting. My favorite topic, and it was an easy solve as well. So we do, of course, planning and forecasting at Intuit. Intuit is, a 35-year-old startup. So we have been doing this for quite a while. There's a 5-year plan, there's a 3-year plan, a 1-year plan, and then there is quarterly forecasts. Every business unit has at least 1 or 2 financial planners, and each financial planner that resides with the business unit, right? They're employed by that siloed business unit, is interacting again with a single point of contact within the finance department. And they do this, as I said, quarterly, annually, and so forth, right? So that you have several dozen people that are agonizing for multiple weeks trying to figure out this forecasting problem. And we have observed that people have a variance, a failure rate of between 20 to 70% with their forecast. So it's not great for all this effort. We talked to other companies that are forecasting as well and asked them what they're doing. No one really had a silver bullet. So we just tried to, machine learning seems to work for almost everything. Can we use machine learning for this problem? And it turns out, yes, we can. We use 2 machine learning algorithms, and the system has the ability to dynamically switch between those 2 algorithms, which is not something that typically a machine learning system would do. One algorithm is for if you have data, let's say you have 12 plus months of data. Based on that, it can do a much better forecast or assumption. And then if you only have a couple of months of data, let's say you just moved from the data center into the cloud, or it's a new workload that you started in the cloud, right? You don't have any history. We can switch to a different system. And so with that machine learning algorithm, we have the ability, we measured the variance against actuals, and it's 7 to 9%. So even worst case, it is still twice as good as the best case, human scenario. So that worked out really well. What you see here on the screenshots, and yes, they are blurry and they're intentionally small. I apologize. There's dollar values there, right? And so the principle that we are following here is we want to make something so delightful that people would be silly not to use it. So the idea is that we'll provide you with this pre-filled out form, so to say, and you can change it any way you like. You can go and modify any of these numbers, but you don't have to. You can just do nothing, and then it simply will take these numbers and move forward with that. Now, any of these kind of forecasts, they just do a trend analysis, right? So the team was so successful with this that they are now looking at driver-based forecasting. So there will be an ability to add drivers to this. For example, like a TV commercial, new product or new country, something like that, like an inorganic growth, and model the driver on top of the trend-based forecasting. So really excited. That seems to be working well. We started this a couple months ago, and adoption is really great. Any questions around that?
I can jump in again. This is Ryan from Ancestry. How often do you guys forecast? You said, is it just quarterly and annually, or do you do it monthly?
No, not monthly. So it is definitely, so how that works is at the beginning of the fiscal year, 2 months before, you do the forecast for the entire 12-month period. Then in the first quarter, you would forecast for 9 months. Then in the second quarter for 6, in the third quarter for the last 3 months. So that's just a system. I'm not a super finance guy, but that's what I observed is happening here. And then there's different cycles for like 5 and 3 year forecasts.
Perfect, thanks.
How do you handle, for machine learning, that'll handle more like of a steady state, but if you're going to have additional migrations, how do you handle that? Or is that where the individuals go in and kind of tweak it themselves?
Yeah, so there's multiple things. First, the machine learning algorithm, we noticed that the one that can handle 12 months and does really good forecasting, it doesn't work with just like 2 or 3 months. So the system itself is able to recognize that the machine learning algorithm doesn't really work, and it will switch. It has multiple different algorithms that it can choose from, and it will just switch to the next one and try to run this one. These machine learning algorithms, 7 to 9% is not good enough to start doing stock day trading, but it beats the people, right? The human forecasters, it's better than they were historically, but it's not really like a super excellent algorithm, right? So in addition, what we are planning is things that you mentioned, right? You have a new workload, a new product, maybe like some TV commercial or something like that's happening, right? And you get an influx of more customers or more people using a feature. We are going to layer on those driver-based forecasts on top of this, trend-based forecast.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay, let's move on to the next one. I think we are going to switch again. Yeah,
there's a question on the chat.
Yeah.
It says, do you use seasonal events, holidays, etc. for forecasting?
Yes, we do. The machine learning algorithm, so if you have 9 months, 12 months is better of data, the machine learning algorithm will know that there was like a Black Friday or some type of, or tax day. there was some kind of event, and it will be able to predict that this event should occur in the new year as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. We didn't do anything special. That was just part of the machine learning algorithm. There's like maybe 20 or so that are suitable for this kind of trend forecasting. So you could try all 20, but that will take a lot of compute and time. We just decided to use two, one for where there is a lot of history and one for where there is not a lot of history. So let's look at KPIs. There's various types of KPIs, internal ones to the program, right? It's something standards that we hold ourselves accountable to, and then there's KPIs that we openly communicate with everyone at Intuit. And so the first two on the top are probably the ones that we openly communicate. We needed a KPI to show the progression as we migrated from the data center into the cloud. We wanted some kind of quantifier to see if we are doing well. So the metric here that we came up with is the cost per core. Again, when you think about it, cost per core is probably not a very good metric because there are some AWS services that don't have cores, like S3 or EBS. But we said, like, hey, you know what, even though we know that, let's just still add them to the total dollar value and just divide by the services that do have cores, like EC2, RDS, and any other compute services, of course. And then we get the number. And so you see here, we have been doing this for since 2014, and the cost per core has steadily decreased as we moved out of the data center into the cloud. Currently, we are about 80% migrated into the cloud, and to be honest, the remaining 20%, not everything will migrate into the cloud. So our total percentage, some of those applications will be simply retired. So the total percentage is slightly higher. And you also see that the blue line, of course, this is all very sanitized and stylized, but the blue line shows the amount of cores used. And you can actually see where we started to migrate into the cloud for real. The amount of cores actually increased almost exponentially. So we were able to keep the cost per core down, even though the total amount of cores increased steadily. So a good example for something when you have a hybrid environment, like cloud or different clouds or whatnot, this can still help you. Again, it is directional. Some services don't have cores. Something that you can decide for yourself if this works for you or if this doesn't work for you. Maybe a short break. Any questions around this one? Okay. The graph to the right, and Karen asked for that. It's actually also very stylized. This is not usually a graph. It's actually a table. And Karen, how this will look like is the rows of that table will be the different types of cost avoidance, like volume discount, reserved instance, EBS lifecycle management, S3 lifecycle management, out of region workloads, so regions where we don't buy RIs, right? And then each month is a column, and then you simply have a dollar value that then gets added up to a total running dollar value and to a annual dollar value. So that is something that is very useful. It justifies paying for people like me, but overall it also shows that the program is doing something useful, and we probably should continue doing that. Any questions?
One question. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Do you still use this or use your homegrown system to populate these graphs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And for some of those graphs can be automated using Google Sheets. So the sheet basically takes an external data source and then it automates it. Unfortunately, the graphs at the bottom, because there's actually a stacked graph and a line, they have to be done by hand because for some reason Google Sheets won't do it as nicely. So yeah.
was just going to ask, do you compare in the cost per core hour? Is this a pure cloud, or are you comparing it to the cost per core hour on-prem as well?
On-prem, and in cloud. So it's basically a transition, right? So it looks like on-prem we had way fewer cores available, and the cost per core was more expensive. I think this cost per core on-prem would be the loaded service, so with like maintenance, HVAC, power, and that kind of stuff. Kind of like what you get from the cloud as well, right?
Yep.
The loaded service there as well.
TCO, yeah. Got it.
Yep. The graphs at the bottom is just for us. Again, they are very stylized. If you're using convertible RIs, you will have a much higher coverage percentage. Our portfolio currently, we have 7% that is standard RIs that have a capacity guarantee. So they are non-regional, just standard RIs. That's for workloads that need to blue-green. So they will double in size, potentially. And for workloads where that doubling is large enough, where Amazon may be out of stock, you will get an insufficient capacity exception. So Amazon will basically tell you, we don't have that at the moment. Come again later. So for those use cases, and which is 7% of our portfolio, we have capacity RIs. Then we have about like 40% is standard regional RIs. So they're again not convertible, they're standard regional RIs. Those are for very well predictable workloads for things that are going to be around for 3 years for sure. And the rest of our portfolio is convertible RIs, right? And convertible RIs allow you to switch between instance families. And we actually have some automation around that, where currently it's once a week, but we're trying to get it more compact to maybe once every 2 days, possibly once every day, where a system will do a full analysis of what was the on-demand in the last 24 hours, what were the unused RIs, can I reconfigure the unused RIs, convertible RIs, into the on-demand to hopefully have a better coverage in the next 24 hours. So that is an automation that is happening, and we are measuring the successfulness. Again, these graphs seem to be, I don't know, random, stylized.
You have a question on the chat from Ashley about what is the size of your team doing all of this and the different roles?
Okay, so we have, I'm the only one that is full-time, 100% assigned to this. We have a manager in cloud operations. He's a part-time resource as needed. He has a team of 7 people, but they do like, onboarding and all kinds of things. Occasionally, one of my tickets will hit the queue and they can help with that. So for example, I need to restart an agent to collect utilization on Kubernetes, right? So that ticket will be done by them. And then we have a manager in the data analytics team, that's Jason Rhodes. And his team has 4 or 5 people, something like that. A lot of the work that they are doing is around the reporting and the visualization, maybe 80%, but not all of the work that they are doing. Some requests are coming that are not cost optimization related, and they serve those requests as well. We have also developers in India that we can utilize if the problem can be compartmentalized and it's not time sensitive. And then there's also my manager. She's a finance person, and we talk like maybe 4 or 5 hours a week about different things that we want to be doing. So it's a fairly small team. The only person that really does nothing else but cost optimization is me. Okay, cool. So more questions?
We're just about out of time. Do you have more slides?
Oh, okay. It was just takeaways. Last one. If I were to do it all over again, I think JR and I talked about this, right? what the mission-based team, we had it from the very beginning, and so occasionally it happens, you know, that people move around and forget what the mission is, and then I have to go and realign. So maybe if you just get started, I would recommend that you have a dedicated team for something like 18-24 months until you have the foundational capabilities built, and then you can do mission-based. For me, in the beginning, it was a little bit challenging. It was like herding cats, but I got used to it, and I got pretty good at it too. So that's really all that I have. If you have any more questions, please contact me, and I will stay after this one as well. You can ask more questions.
How do you calculate the waste? I think you mentioned it, but I'm not sure if I picked it up correctly. Just how do you measure that number? Because that's something I'm trying to work out, like to say, how much did I waste last week?
Yeah. So there's multiple ways, right? So there is you have on-demand, and how much of the on-demand is covered by RIs, right? But you also have the opposite. You have how many RIs do you have, and what is not used? Which of those are? What's the percentage of RIs that currently not used? But you mentioned a specific number. I will bring it up on screen again. Hopefully. Which one of those were you talking about?
It was the number 3, the bottom left corner one. I took a screenshot of it. That's why I know the exact one. It was in your
the bottom left corner.
Yeah, there's 4 metrics you have. It's near the end. I think it's maybe your second last slide.
Okay. Let's do that.
Yep, that one there.
Okay, so that's pretty simple, right? You can do that also with Cost Explorer out of the box. So the light gray bar, so we are talking here about number 3. I'm talking about this bar. Hopefully you can see that mouse there. There's a light gray and a dark gray. Sorry for the color scheme. My manager did that. So the light gray bar actually goes all the way to the bottom, right? And it is the on-demand. And so the dark gray bar is how much of this on-demand that goes all the way to the bottom, how much of that is covered by reserved instances. So that that's a Cost Explorer. It's a utilization report, I think, or coverage report, something like that. Yep.
Just to add to that, so the waistline is the vacancy rate. So it's every time an RI hour is not assigned to an EC2 instance and applying a discount, effectively you're still paying for the RI, and so that cost is what is being, I guess, underutilized or wasted. And so it might be a good thing that you have a bit of waste. It just means that you're probably driving a higher level of coverage and have a little bit of underutilization. We classify waste really once you get to a point where the actual RI subscription itself is not actually saving you money. And underneath that, we call it underutilization. But it's just that vacancy rate. And as Dieter says, the Cost Explorer should be able to show you that vacancy rate. Most, like all the good third-party vendors, show you that rate. And then in the cost and usage report data itself, it's the actual RI lines themselves. They keep some of that cost on that line, whereas the rest of the cost will get distributed up to discount usage lines. And so you can kind of find where that vacancy is in the data or using the tooling.
Yeah, I think I get that bit, right, Dan? And that's, I think, easy to measure. I think the bit I'm trying to work out is when I've got an on-demand that isn't used at all, right? And in a sense, that is wasted because it's just not used or it's used at the wrong size. Do you calculate that? So, for example, someone's purchased a 10 extra large M4, but in reality, he only needs a large. The RI covers the 10 extra large, so technically it's free, right? And but it really is waste because it's not used. Is there a way to measure that bit? Because I know I can get it through a right sizing report and stuff, but how would I make it easy to see?
Yeah, there is, and that you can see here. I will try to share this again. It will be the red tile or the red rectangle on this card. It is called the EC2 low utilization. If you have enterprise support with Amazon, you will get the trusted advisor for free, I think. And it will tell you if you have EC2 instances that are continuously underutilized. I think for Trusted Advisor to report this, it has to be less than 10% for 4 consecutive days. And then that report will show the instance. Yeah, you may have covered it by an RI, you may not have covered it, right? But this is called right sizing, actually. It's a right sizing opportunity that someone is renting, you know, a 6-bedroom apartment and they are just by themselves with a dog. So they don't need that much. They need a smaller instance, and this is how you catch it. And, you know, Kara actually asked, how do you drive the software engineers to do the right thing and get the right house for what they need, get the right instance size for what they need. And that's the way to basically, for us, at least at Intuit, to drive that behavior.
Okay.
The big thing here is to realize that your bill is made up of your usage times your rate. And so right sizing is to reduce the amount of usage you have. So reduce the size of your instances, reduce the amount of, you know, unused volumes, etc. And then the rate is where you do your right sizing stuff. And so while it is all savings, it is really good to to see that these are two sides of the coin. That there is usage reduction on one side, and we're going to show that savings, or what we call cost avoidance. We basically reduce the amount of the usage we have, so therefore avoided the cost in the first place. And then the rate that we paid, which is where we've applied some form of discount program against that usage and got a cheaper rate to pay for it. And measuring them separately makes it clearer. And usually usage reduction is done by teams out in the field. They're the ones that are provisioning up the 10 room houses. And then the rate reduction is usually much better done by your centralized team that understand how ROIs work and your private pricing agreements, etc.
You got it. Perfect.
So follow-up question to that, and for context, I sit in finance, but that utilization rate, I know talking to teams, like it's very specific to the stack ID and the workload that they have, because some of them are looking for a lower utilization rate, like that's their target, it's not 100%. So how do you aggregate that, or what's your goal for the utilization rate on EC2s?
So here at Intuit, we started with Trusted Advisor because it was available, and it's basically under 10% for 4 consecutive days. I think, if I have it right. We see, and it's, that's not the end of all, right? Unfortunately, Trusted Advisor is very limited, and it doesn't do memory utilization, right? So we are looking for a better way of doing this. There's different products that allow you to do right sizing, but typically they need an agent installed on the EC2 instance to get memory and disk utilization. I think you get a CPU and network bandwidth from Amazon. So for the other 2 metrics, you need an agent installed. So we went actually for a long process of getting the agent installed, having the data collected, right? And so now we have like the majority of our workload of our fleet has all the metrics, and we are evaluating different tools at the moment for right sizing alternatives. There is a cost explorer. I don't know if that's in beta at the moment or if it's generally available, but there is a right sizing feature in Cost Explorer, so we are looking at that as well. If it is not general available yet, it will become available, and I don't know what the pricing around it is, but it does. That feature also only takes into consideration CPU, not memory. So ideally, we want to have some tool that does memory and CPU.
And we found memory is very important to look at, because we found where it may be low CPU utilization but high memory. And so in that case, should you go from a general use EC2 instance to more of a memory optimized, where you can actually go smaller, but because it's memory optimized, you're actually in the end saving money. So we have, sorry, go ahead.
We've seen that as well. So I guess what I'm asking is that utilization, it's 67 here is red, but that might be good for some stacks that need more memory utilization. So what's your goal for the EC2 utilization there?
I think we would, it's basically, this number is how many instances where 10% CPU utilization or less for 4 days. This number does not equal to the CPU utilization that we are looking for. We would be looking for maybe 60 to 70%. That would be nice. 40% would already be great. Under single digit is not acceptable. So that's
I think
my
that
guideline.
there's two things here I think that are important to realize. I definitely think that memory is like very important.
Yeah.
But I guess like if you looked at Trusted Advisor today and it told you that there was 2,000 instances that could be classified as low utilization, why don't we just pick that low hanging fruit before we worry about all of the fine intricacies? The second thing there is it is possible to mark these recommendations in Trusted Advisor as okay. And so we use that here at Atlassian is once you mark it as acceptable, that I've looked into this and it's low CPU, but it's definitely needed for my service. It might be a master node of a cluster that does nothing until something fails, but then it needs all of that compute. And there are reasons why, and this is why I'm really hesitant to people talking about like automated right sizing for production resources, is there's business logic that sits behind some of these decisions that needs to be captured from your teams. And having a tool that can now allow you to mark these things as being investigated, to us, we see someone actively marking it as investigated as this is fine. Like they've looked at this, they've considered what's going on here, and we accept that. And then we would take that out of that percentile and cost figure.
So so Trusted Advisor allows you to mark them, or what we refer to as whitelisting it?
Yeah, Trusted Advisor does, and it is something that we keep pushing the vendors, other vendors that we're using to offer as a feature.
Okay, no, thank you.
So Karen, for example, you see here that this tile in the top row where my mouse is jiggling, see it has 85%, right? But it's still green. All the other tiles are like in the 90%. So because when something is marked with an exception, we don't count it against the goal. We still will point it out, hey, there's an opportunity here, but it's not a red tile. This tile is green because it has a lot of exceptions in it. So that's what Mike is talking about as well. You may have workloads that have to be like that, or there is currently, within the next 18 or 12 to 18 months, there is no way out of this, right? This is how it's going to be. And instead of getting, alerted or reported every week, right, it's better if you grant them an exemption and they are just excluded out of the report.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're looking for, is what tool will allow that whitelisting or approved exceptions. So you're not constantly getting the alerts.
Yeah. So what we have to, there's an open source tool that I can mention without using any vendor names. There's an open source tool called Cloud Custodian from Capital One. It's an extremely versatile tool. It does have a little bit of a lift to get it installed in your operation, because it needs access to all the accounts. So it needs to be able to do things like shut down instances and things like that. And that tool can handle exceptions as well. And we are using it.
Thank you.
So for example, if you have Cloud Custodian, you can do something like this. In a test account, if someone starts an EC2 instance in Singapore, and let's say Singapore is not a green region, referring to the previous talk, then you just terminate it, right? The developer starts the instance. There's unfortunately no facility that there's some IAM roles you could disallow starting instances, or you just use Cloud Custodian and you terminate the instance as soon as it comes up. If it's in a production environment, what you do is you send a message into a message queue, and then the message queue is being processed into a persistent layer, and then once a week you send out a little report. We do that actually with all the actionable insights of where people can save money.
And you're using Cloud Custodian for that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Be interested to know what y'all use, like what optimization items that you look at with Cloud Custodian. Because we have Cloud Custodian, but we haven't used it in that manner.
No. So I can tell you we have out of region, we have for EC2 and RDS, we have older family for EC2 and RDS. We have operating system, and you can take notes, I hope. Operating system from the marketplace, so you're paying extra for it. You may already have a license. It was a problem for us. Someone may
No,
have
it's
something.
not. It's not. It's not 6 or 7. It's going to be 3.
So someone may have. We also have a problem with tenancy. There's something called dedicated tenancy. Some developers, for some reason, started things in dedicated. Probably they didn't know, so we needed to turn that off as well. Then we have unattached EBS, unattached elastic IP address, low, and everything that's in Trusted Advisor. So low RDS, low EC2, underutilized EBS, unattached EBS, that kind of stuff. I think we have 17 rules altogether.
I may message you then through Slack.
Yeah.
To understand more. No, thank you.
Yeah, Dieter, if you want to share that, we could start kind of an ongoing doc of what people are using for those types of things. We're looking to do some recipes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Okay, cool. Thanks so much, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Dieter.
Bye-bye.
All right, you guys take care. Bye.
JR here from the FinOps Foundation. Thank you for watching. Please go to FinOps.org if you want to get plugged into this amazing community. And of course, hit subscribe right here on YouTube to get all the future content. Hope to see you soon.